3FM 92.7. We're live from our studios here at the Subway Kanda in Accra. Also live on all our social media platforms at 3FM 927 plus on 3news.com. My name is Noble Crosby. Annan. In the bulletin this afternoon, government comes under a barrage of criticism over the cancellation of a political convention by the New Force movement. Meanwhile, the face behind the group, Nana Bediako Cheda, describes himself as the man to rebuild Ghana and Africa. I'll be getting more in the bulletin. Also, take you to the domain market here in Accra, where over 50 shops have been razed down by raging fire. And football fans in the Ashanti region excited as the Black Stars plays Namibia later today in the only preparatory game ahead of the Cup of Nations in less than a week. We have details of these stories and a lot more coming to you shortly. Please stay with us. Let's get into details of the stories this afternoon. A reminder that we're live also on all our social media platforms at 3FM 927. The Nanado-led government has come under criticism over the cancellation of a political convention by the New Force Foundation. The event was to take place at the Independence Square on Sunday, January 7, but state security operatives stormed the venue and cancelled it, insisting it was required for a public event. Now, some members of the group and sympathizers who had converged at the venue expressed their disappointment.
So that it will bring development and then economic stability to we the citizenry.
Formerly there was discipline, but now no discipline at all. They say
as a youth like me, I want to attend a program that will encourage me to, push my life forward. And as we arrive here, we are hearing rumors that the program is not coming on.
It's very unfortunate that our perspective didn't come to reality, like things that we wanted to experience, it didn't come to pass. What we heard was order from above, so the program has been cancelled, and it's very unfortunate as a young guy, and we are living in a democratic country that we believe in freedom of speech, associations.
I'm told at the last minute the program is not going on. Why? Why is the program not going on? Powers above. I don't know who the powers are, but they have shut this down.
My constituents have come 12 hours, 16 hours from the hinterlands to this place. They are going back home without nothing. I am sad. The very speakers that were invited in this country, they are going back to their hometowns. What are they taking about Ghana to that particular country?
All the way from Navrongo to this place is a very far journey.
And you hear the voices of some members of the group and sympathizers who had converged at the venue expressing their disappointment at the turn of events. Well, Nana Bediako, popularly known as Cheta, who was outdoored himself as the leader of the New Force movement, has been accused of using the event to promote his political movement. Now, the group has in the last few months mounted major billboards with a marked image and messages serving notice of a paradigm shift from regular political movement. Addressing the press shortly after the program organized by the movement at the Independence Square was scuttled by the national security, and now Kwame Bediako owned up to being the masked man.
But I know you're still looking for freedom, Jacob Caesar. Yes, I am Rick Christian, and I'm here. I'm not here to take your value. I'm here to add value to you. I discovered that the land that we belong to had so much wealth that until we turn it into our own, our economy will never be sustainable. And we cannot forever live in our countries with a box economy. I needed to create a middle income economy without being a part of the government. Why so? Because I believe it's part of my responsibility. I took a different path. My movements, my foundation, my groups, and all of this have acquired some wealth. But the wealth that I reimbursed back into society, it has become a part of my mission to make this change. I believe that I belong to Africa. I am a son of this soil, and I can add value to humanity, and I came here to do that. I came here to add value to this world and to nature. I am not going to live here without God even being proud of me. And when I'm not here also,
3FM
I want you to remember that I
92.7.
came. And I want my absence to be felt. And for that reason, I know you're looking for the man. But the man in the mask is sitting in front of you.
And that is how Nana Kwame Bediako, popularly known as Cheddar, outdoored himself as the leader of the New Force movement. Well, some of the guests who were billed to speak at the event, including Pan-Africanist Professor P.L.O. Lumumba, have denied seeking to use the gathering to advance the political cause of Nana Kwame Bediako. Take a listen to Professor P.L.O. Lumumba.
Ghana to share a message, the message that Africa needs at this time. And there is no better place in the continent of Africa to begin that message than Accra, Ghana. It is in this Accra, Ghana that the Osage for Kwame Nkrumah almost 67 years ago, spoke to the world and told the world that the independence of Ghana meant nothing if the continent of Africa was not free. 67 years later, we were congregating here in Accra with one single instruction that we have lamented for too long, agonized for too long, and the time is now to organize. That is the innocent message that we came here to deliver.
And you heard the voice of Professor P.L.O. Lumumba, a Pan-Africanist, as he was a guest billed to speak at the event, including some other Pan-Africanists there. Well, meanwhile, government's action continued to elicit sharp criticisms from sections of the public, with many questioning the reason for government to undertake such an action. Founding president of Imani Africa, Franklin Kujo, in a Facebook post a while ago, described the action as reckless. He wrote, quote, "The president in his Constitution Day speech promised to uphold individual liberties and guarantee freedom of assembly and association. Less than 5 hours after his speech, his office strangely torpedoed a licensed public event a group of law-abiding citizens had put together, leaving thousands stranded as heavily armed security forces barred entry to the venue. The reason? The president's office had booked the same venue for an unspecified event, chaotic, reckless, and brigandry, and that is according to Professor, the founding president of Imani Africa, Franklin Kujo there. Well, you could still share with us your thoughts on the matter on any of our social media platforms at 3FM 927. We'll be glad to share them with the rest of the world. This is a subject that has generated a lot of conversation. Let's speak with Professor Bafo Ajimendria, who is a governance consultant, also on the back of this. Prof, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this afternoon. Government has justified the cancellation of the political gathering. What do you make of this development, the time it happened, and what message does it send?
Well, first, thanks for having me. I've been thinking about this particular event, and I can't believe that our president is having one scandal after the other. What happened last night is really scandalous. First of all, we have dependable intelligence organizations and systems in the country. When they applied for a permit to use Independence Square, I'm sure they had every opportunity to scrutinize people behind it before granting the approval. And once the approval was given, if they were bothered by what was going to happen, they could have still started the information to have made their decision long before the gathering took place. Now you wait till the last minute when all these dignified African, Pan-Africanists have arrived in the country, only to send policemen, armed people to go and surround the place. It's very disgraceful. I don't know who advises this government or the president on these matters. It's shameful. You see, you have addressed the nation on our Constitution Day, where you praise democracy and call on Ghanaians to protect our democracy, something I may want to address later anyway. Then, within hours, the government behaves as if it's under siege and send armed people to an event that the government itself has approved. And when I read the response from the Jubilee House on why they did what they did, saying that unfortunately there was an unforeseen state event that was going to take place, and we all know nothing took place on behalf of the government that evening, it's a blatant lie. And these kinds of incidents should be stopped. I mean, we are getting embarrassed almost every day we wake up, and that is not good for the country. I feel very terrible that when people, Pan-Africanist champions today, PLO Lumumba, Madame Africana, and others, Ubi and others have already arrived in the country. That's how you treat such individuals? It's really shameful.
Prof, talk to us about the time this is happening, at a time the country is celebrating 31 years of democracy, and how much of a matter of concern this is.
You see, in the first place, I'm happy that we, as a people, want to celebrate our democracy, our constitutional rule, as you rightly said, almost 32 years, exactly 31 years, and we are fighting on. But if you listen to the president's speech, again, you have a reason to worry. Because a lot of Ghanaians, including our president, seem to think that democracy is simply having elections every 4 years, electing people to come in and to go out the next 4 years or 8 years. That is just a small aspect of democracy. We call that electoral democracy. Democracy's true meaning should be reflected on the results of our efforts as Democrats. Results that will show in our economic progress, as well as the attitude and mindset of people to uphold democratic tenets, principles, and values. So democracy actually should be observed in between elections, not just on election day and after the election, then wait for the next election. That is what seems to be happening to us for the past 31 years. Nobody seems to worry about what goes on between elections, when governments who win power are expected to show in their behavior and actions their love for strengthening and deepening the democratic process. You see, for the past 31 years, and maybe I would say more prominently the past 10 years, a lot of voices have been raised about the challenges we face as a democratic society. The fact that even though our constitution has sustained us these past 31 years, only because we have never had a coup, which we can celebrate. But that is not enough. A lot of voices have been raised about certain inadequacies in our constitution. So on such a day, with the president having only 1 more year to go, I would have expected him to highlight some of these challenges that have been raised and adding his voice to the necessity for to regenerate our constitution. We are talking about constitutional reforms, reviews, whatever you call it, telling us that we have problems.
Prof.
So again, yes.
This has been necessitated, not to cut you, Prof. This has been necessitated by the action of government over the convention by the New Force movement. But granted that the explanation or the reason given by government that it was due to an unforeseen event or something, a venue they want to use for something else, in the first request for the Independence Square for any activity from these organizers we're talking about, it was to be used for a Black Star Line festival. The details of that did not include the presence of these Pan-Africanists who would be coming, as it were, yesterday to engage the citizenry or to speak with anybody on that matter. Then it happens that it metamorphosed into the convention igniting the voices of Africa. Some argue that due to the difference in the names and the agenda from the organizers, it prompted government to intervene as some sort of defense for the government?
Well, as I said in my very early remarks on this, in this conversation, the reason why governments maintain intelligence agencies is precisely for what we're talking about. The fact that organizers did not list the people who are going to speak for me is immaterial. If I'm going to have a festival or a convention or whatever you want to call it, I need the space for this.
Right.
If the government is interested, truly interested in what is going to happen within that space, it has the means to find that out. Again, look at the individuals that you just mentioned. PLO Lumumba is not an enemy of Ghana. He comes here all the time. I even understand, if I'm right, that his wife or something is from Ghana. He loves Ghana. He's here all the time. He speaks favorably about Ghana. Of course, if there's something wrong about the country, he says it too. Madame Africana, he is not a person who doesn't like Ghana. He does. In fact, he's connected somehow to Ghana. Obi. So in other words, Ghana is regarded as the home of Pan-Africanism,
right.
Something that Nkrumah gave us. So for me, this is a recognition of Ghana's historic role in Pan-Africanism. And if you listen a little bit into the details of what they wanted to do, Ghana was only serving as a venue for them to voice out their visions for Africa generally.
Right.
We are not here to attack Ghana. So are we now saying we're in a spirit of Pan-Africanism, a country that championed Pan-Africanism in the late 50s to the 60s?
Thank you.
Are we afraid of that? You see, so I think whoever advised the government to take that action did a bad service, a disservice to the government and the nation.
Professor Agyeman-Duah, thank you so much for your time with us on the program. We've been speaking with governance consultant, Professor Bafo Agyeman-Duah there. Away from that, in a tragic turn of events, a raging fire has engulfed approximately 50 shops within the Dom Market. Eyewitnesses report the inferno igniting around 9 p.m. on January 7, 2024, and the cause remains unknown. Emmanuel Samani, he has been on site. He will be joining us to bring us the latest from the Dom Market as the market women and traders are beginning to count their losses. Emmanuel Samani, he has visited the Dom Market to gauge the atmosphere and whether or not efforts are underway to rebuild the market and what investigators are telling Samani on the back of the fire outbreak at the Dom Markets that engulfed over 50 shops. When we reach Emmanuel Samani, we'll bring you that conversation. But let's take a listen to some of these market women who are counting their losses. Then we'll speak with Emmanuel Samani. And those were the voices of some market women who are beginning to count their losses at the Dom Market. Emmanuel Samani, good afternoon to you. Talk to us about what you found when you went to the market earlier today.
Crosby, can you repeat that?
What I'm asking for is updates on the situation at the Dom Market.
Right. So market women traders are counting their losses as fire raised some portions of the Dom Market last night. Eyewitnesses tell me that the fire started at around 9:30 p.m. last night when they had retired back home. The cause of the fire is currently unknown, but the market women tell me they believe this was as a result of arson because they had been told to, evacuate or leave that particular spot, but they refused for the construction of a new market store. And so they believe that this fire really is a move to smoke them out of where they are, conducting business for the construction of a market stall, which they can't afford the rent for that. They tell me that they are supposed to pay some 120,000 cedis in rent for the new buildings, and that is an amount that they simply cannot afford, Crosby.
Right, but talk to us about how long it took for fire service operators to get there, and how long the fire consumed these shops for until the personnel from the National Fire Service arrived to put out the fire.
Right. So, usually when it comes to the fire service, they get a bad rep for arriving late. But in this regard, they tell me that the fire service actually got there on time, but unfortunately, due to the nature of the market, they did not have access. So the accessibility of the market was a problem. And so they couldn't really, they got to the place on time, but getting to the source of the fire seemed to be problematic because of, all the market stalls around and the benches and so on and so forth. And so that's really what is the situation at the drum market at the moment, Crosby.
Emmanuel Samani, thank you. But before you go, how far are investigations into the fire yet? We understand the cause remains unknown, but have you seen a person from the fire service there at the moment?
So we know that the fire, the inferno started last night. So upon arrival, the fire service personnel had already left the scene. There were no police presence at the moment. But I interacted with the former MC of the area, Dr. Janet, and she tells me that they are going to look into it and they will keep us up to speed with the latest regarding this particular fire incident.
Emmanuel Samani, thank you so much for your time with us on the program. Emmanuel Samani speaking with us from the Dome Market there. Away from that, the reason today is a holiday is because Ghana is still commemorating years since it returned to democratic rule through the 1992 Constitution. Well, after years of operationalization, the 1992 has stood the test of time. But have you wondered how this may have been the result of how it was crafted? The following report by Duke Menso takes us back to the Consultative Assembly that worked on the Constitution and how their work has contributed to the current democratic dispensation.
In 1991, 258 Ghanaians from all walks of life and professional persuasions gathered at the then Kwame Nkrumah Conference Center to consider the report of the Committee of Experts and to set in motion the process of considering proposals for what would become the 1992 Constitution. Kofi Atto was then a young cadre selected to be part of the Consultative Assembly.
There were 260 people that were supposed to be in the Consultative Assembly. CDRs had 10 people allocated to them, and we elected the people from all over the regions, and I was elected from the voter region.
He contends that the secret to the longevity of the 1992 Constitution is the fact that it is indeed the people's constitution crafted by the thoughts, feelings, and ideas of the masses and not the select few.
All the professionals, everybody, beauticians were there, butchers. Do you know why this Constitution lasted this long? Because all Ghanaians were there. All the professionals at the time, I mean, if you can mention doctors, medical doctors, police.
Not even the boycott of the process by the Ghana Bar Association and the National Union of Ghana Students could derail the works of the framers.
The absence of GBE was just an absence of one lawyer who could not make it. There were more than 30 to 40 lawyers in there. There were more than...
That was a report by my colleague Duke Mensa Opoku. But in the face of constant calls for the amendment of the Constitution, what are the thoughts of Ghanaians on the Constitution?
Constitution that has to be changed so that it will bring development and then economic stability to we the citizenry.
Formerly there was discipline, but now no discipline at all. They say, what's the English? Democracy. So little girl or little boy can talk anyhow.
The 4 years is short and the president cannot do a lot about it. A lot of things within the 4 years. So my idea is that if at least they extend it to 5 years or 6 years, that one, the president can do a lot of things.
Most of the people are not involved when they are taking decision. You and I, they feel we are nobody, though we were the people that voted for them to be there.
Ghana's constitution, we need to throw it into the sea because our leaders are trying to make trickish among us.
Those were the views of some Ghanaians on the Constitution and the reason why it needs to be amendment. But in the face of the constant calls for political analyst Professor Dujemfi, the Constitution, despite its obvious success, has not helped the ordinary Ghanaian achieve the dream of a better Ghana.
The enforceability of their rights within the social contract, that which is missing because the state actors, i.e. the citizens, are porous in their thinking, porous in their persuasion when it comes to their rights and responsibilities. So 4 years to 4 years, 8 years we've seen power alternation between MPP and NDC. Yet, because we are not properly schooled about constitutional rights and obligations, these politicians decide to deceive us.
You hear the voice of Professor Edu Jemfi there on the Constitution. Now, before we go, the Black Stars of Ghana, they will later today continue with preparations towards the African Cup of Nations set to begin in less than a week with a friendly match against Namibia. The game will afford the head coach, Chris Hughton, the opportunity to finalize his tactics and player selection ahead of the game. We'll be bringing you details in our subsequent bulletins. But that's how we wrap up on the news on 3FM 92.7. There's more news on our website, 3news.com. But just before we go, a recap of our top stories this afternoon. Government has come under a barrage of criticism over the cancellation of a political convention by the New Force movement. Meanwhile, the face behind the group, Nana Bediako Cheda, has described himself as the man to rebuild Ghana and Africa. Also, we brought you some news from the Dawn Market in Accra, where over 50 shops have been razed down by fire. Plus, football fans in the Ashanti region are excited as the Black Stars play Namibia later today in the only preparatory game ahead of the Cup of Nations in less than a week. My name is Noble Crosby, and there's more news on 3news.com. Good afternoon.
Accra gets busy on this frequency. 92.7 3FM.
From the Victoria Falls of Zimbabwe, the Table Mountains of South Africa, the pyramids of Egypt, the enchanting landscape of Zanzibar, to the breathtaking view